Polyglot Conference!
欢迎参加 Polyglot Conference! Bienvenidos a Polyglot Conference! Polyglot Conference! ¡Yokoso!
Yay! Welcome to Polyglot Conference! Yay! Hello everybody, welcome to this talk. My name is Tetsu Young. Some of you may know me as the organizer of Langfest, but today I would like to represent my own brand, Ask Tetsu, in talking about raising multilingual children. But before I jump into my talk, I would like to first thank Richard and his team for giving me this opportunity to present at the Polyglot Conference Global. It's a fantastic opportunity for me to be able to share my experience in raising my 4 kids in the different languages that I raise them in, 5 specifically. So without further ado, I will jump into my talk. So the title of my talk is Skillful Management of Children's Emotions is Key to Raising Multilingual Kids Successfully. So when talking about developing skills, whether it's learning languages or sports, music, art, anything, any skill, I think 2 words come to mind, and one is motivation, the other is confidence. So this is the same for raising multilingual children. You need to be able to manage your children's motivation and confidence in different ways. And we're specifically, I'm not talking about talent or intelligence, really motivation and confidence. So motivation is what pulls you towards your goals, your objectives, and the emotions or feelings that we're trying to go for here are things like I want, I like, I love, or I need. And the other for confidence, these are things, this is something that pushes you through obstacles that inevitably put themselves in your way. And the feelings or emotions that we're going for here are things like I can, I will, I'm not afraid, or something even as this sort of a matter of fact type of feeling that evokes the sense of why not. This may sound trivial, but to feel like why not is also something that requires confidence. And I'd like to note that motivation and confidence in learning languages is something that is applicable to all of you watching right now, you polyglots or language learners, or learners of anything, like I said earlier, but for adults. Adults also need motivation and confidence. But the big difference between adults and children, I would say, is that children have the disadvantage that they cannot rationalize things like adults can. So they cannot convince themselves that learning languages is good, it's important, it's beneficial to their career, or it allows them to make friends or communicate better. Or these concepts are not something that would drive them. So most kids that I know, the rare exceptions, are kids that they don't care about languages. They neither like or nor dislike. Language is just part of their lives, but they don't really care about it. So adults, if they want to learn languages, they are able to motivate themselves through different means by rationalizing, but kids cannot. So it's very important for parents to be able to manage motivation and confidence for their kids if they want to expect to raise multilingual children successfully. So my talk is very simple. The agenda today is simply the do's and don'ts of motivation and confidence. So what we do in our family to motivate our kids to speak languages, and what are the things that we avoid so that we don't kill their motivation. Same for the confidence. So let's jump right in. The first thing that we do in our home in order for our kids to have motivation to speak different languages is this concept called one person, one language, or OPAL for short. Now, in any given year, in our home, you will find this multilingual setting. Myself and my father's from Taiwan, we speak Mandarin to the kids only. My wife and my mother, who are both Japanese natives, they speak Japanese with the kids exclusively. We live in Quebec, Quebec, Canada. In this area, the official language is French, so they speak French in the community. So it's represented by our kids' friends here in the photo. And we have introduced Spanish artificially into the mix by hiring au pairs from Mexico. So au pairs are basically live-in caregivers or live-in nannies, and we bring them in from Mexico, and they would speak exclusively Spanish with the kids. With the adults, they will speak English, so because most of the times they want to learn English. And in terms of English as a language itself for our kids, sometimes we bring in au pairs. Sometimes, like this past year, we had an exchange student, high school kid, and sometimes we don't have any. And living in Quebec, being part of Canada, we do have a lot of other alternative sources of input for English. So we're not so worried about English. Sometimes we try to reinforce it a bit, but we have TVs here. The kids have maybe their skating coach speaks English. Maybe their horseback riding coach speaks English. So there are different ways to bring in English to different input sources. So these are the 5 languages that our kids are raised in: English, French, Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish. And these are the ones that we really want to bring them to a very good level. Next way we do, we try to try to get our kids to have a need to speak languages is by traveling. Every year we spend 8 months in Quebec, where they go to the local school. In the community, they will use French predominantly and a good portion of English. And then, so this is from September to April. Basically, we are here in Canada. And then we go to Japan at the end of April. We spend 2 months there. They go to the local school there. They're immersed in Japanese 24/7 for a good 2 months. And then we go to Taiwan for another 2 months, where we do the same in Mandarin. Now, this year, 2020, was a special case due to the COVID situation. So the kids went to Japan in March, and they just recently came back to Canada. I stayed here in Canada, but the kids were in Japan for 5 months, from March to August. So this was a little different. We still traveled, but it's just a different itinerary as usually that we would have in the previous years. Now, obviously, the immersion itself includes friends and family. So that's a very, very strong incentive for our kids to speak the local language. When we're in Canada, again, English and French. Go to Japan, we have our family in Japan. They speak only Japanese, and it's normal. It's expected. They don't question it, they just do it. Same thing in Taiwan. Everybody speaks Mandarin in Taiwan. They speak Mandarin. Friends, again, very strong incentive. It's a big, they need to speak these languages. They want to play. They want to integrate into the social circles. So very natural and very easy in that sense, conceptually. Now, if we jump to different things like interests, their various interests, we try to build in language elements in there so that we can boost their motivation. So books, we've got books in all 5 languages. iPad, the different apps that are in there in all different languages. And in this picture, you see that Ronnie is playing a game in Mandarin. And right there, this one is actually a game that talks about how to learn Bopomofo, which is a Taiwanese sort of alphabet, I guess. And it's fun. It's gamification. We never force them to learn these things, but if you can earn points by playing games, then he wants to do them. So we just supply the apps, and we just leave it there, and they play. In the car, we have a DVD system. If they want to watch, we put on DVDs in Japanese, DVDs in Mandarin, and again, that's another incentive for them to learn these languages. They just watch. And we take it to a whole new level with TV programs or Netflix, or watching the screen. For example, here the Akira, our third child, he loves Paw Patrol. Ronnie also, when he was 3, he loved Paw Patrol. And you can find Paw Patrol in all these different languages. Why not capitalize on that? Just supply these cartoons in these different languages. The children naturally gravitate towards them, and you can even reinforce it further, or reinforce their love for Paw Patrol further with these toys, for example. Just get them hooked, and they'll watch, regardless of the language that you're supplying it with. Recently, what we've done, like I mentioned earlier, the kids were in Japan for 5 months. They didn't go to Taiwan this year, so they didn't have that reinforcement in Mandarin, especially because I was here in Canada and my father also. They were cut off from Mandarin significantly, other than our occasional Facebook Live, Facebook Messenger chats. So we've noticed that our kids, especially Akila, his Mandarin started to deteriorate after a few weeks in Japan. So we started online lessons through italki, which happens to be a sponsor for the Polyglot Conference. Thank you very much. We found a few different teachers on italki. We had to go through them to find the right fit. And after a few, we actually found a guy from Taiwan. He's really good with kids. He's built programs tailored to each of our kids based on their interests. You see here, Ronnie. Well, actually, the top left picture here you see is the teacher, and he's got this Spider-Man doll, and kids love it. He's acting as if this doll is actually talking to the kids. So he's really able to get down to the level of the kids and really speak their language. Ronnie loves trivia, geography. So here you see a picture of him with this teacher on italki, talking about flags. Here's a flag of Chile with different information of the country. So Ronnie loves that stuff. He digs that stuff, and he's hooked throughout the 50 minutes lesson. Bottom left, you see Nika. She's on a different program. This cartoon. So the teacher's putting on this cartoon. He's talking over it. He's telling her the story in very simple terms, and then he drills her. I mean, he gives her different questions about things that happen in that story, and Nika's able to answer them because she's so into it. So really, we love this teacher. We've already booked him for the next 2 months. Because we really see the kids' vocabulary grow. And now, this was originally for the period in Japan. We thought it, as an emergency sort of backup plan. But now we're continuing, even though they're back here. We've got myself and my father talking to them in Mandarin, but we're still booking this teacher because he's got a different angle on this. And as long as the kids want it, as long as they love it, we're just going to supply and see their Mandarin grow. I mean, even look at this picture at the bottom here. You see Akila. Akila's not taking the lessons, but this teacher gave us all the links to the materials that he's showing us, and the kids love it. The kids are even watching it, when they're not having the lessons. So that really shows how much this teacher's really thought through his lessons and providing material that really hooks our kids. So, fantastic motivation. Bravo. So last thing I want to talk about in terms of motivation, the things to do, I'm going to summarize it really down to encouraging your kids. It's not a specific activity or thing but it's really continuously thinking about boosting their motivation by encouraging them to do whatever they do, by telling them how good they are in what they do, um, uh, or relying on them, depending on them, making them feel that they're contributing by speaking different languages. For example, my wife would often tell, let our kids talk to different people when we go outside and in the community. She would reinforce that herself. She's not very good in French, but if the kids talk to her in Japanese and then translate to other people, it helps her a lot. And now the kids feel that what they're doing matters. So that's how we sort of boost their motivation to speak Japanese very well. So next, let me talk about some don'ts, some things that we avoid in order to preserve their motivation. One thing we don't do is we don't send them to schools dedicated to languages, language cram schools. Also, being here in Canada, for example, here Montreal is our closest big city. A lot of people send their kids to these weekend cultural centers or Japanese. For example, here there's a Japanese cultural center where they spend like a whole Saturday together. They have drills, they have lessons, and whatnot. We don't do it well. One reason is for the distance, because Montreal is over an hour away from here, so we don't go there every weekend. But also, I know for a fact that many kids don't like it. So we don't want to force this additional academic sort of thing on them to learn languages as a separate subject. So we try to, again, like I said, we try to build the environment where they need to use it naturally, but we don't want to create this additional burden. So we don't send them to weekend classes. We don't send them to these cultural centers. What we do is when we go to Japan, I mean, for one thing, here in Canada, they go to the local school, like any kids. But when we go to Japan, we send them to the Japanese school. You see on the left here. They blend right in, just like normal Japanese kids. And when we go to Taiwan, they go into the Taiwanese school system. We don't want them to feel different. Go there, do what any kid their age would do, and that's how we create that environment for them to naturally use the languages. Next thing we don't do, I wonder if I mentioned it a bit earlier, is we don't force them to do drills. We don't force them to learn grammar. We don't have any textbooks. We just don't do any of that. We do want them to learn to how to read, for example, these Chinese characters. We hope it's not the biggest priority, but we hope that they can. And but instead of getting them to write, different characters like 100,000 times, or just very dry, just repeatedly writing, we try to make it fun. Nika loves anything artistic, so you see this in this picture. She's got this little exercise where she's got to color in these little drawings, and along the way there's Japanese hiragana where she could learn how to read. The story of this little book that you see on the left here, this is also a book that we bought because it's a very popular drill book in Japan. Kids 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, they love to talk about poop, farts, and that kind of stuff. And this book is really something that capitalizes on that. Everything in this book is about poop. So on this page, you see the exercises. It's about the character that's for 100, 100, okay? And so the different exercises there, talks about finding a 100 yen coin in poop or things like that. So it has to do with poop, and kids just love it. So it's a very popular book in Japan, and we bought it so that they could, if it draws their attention, they'll go in and they'll have fun and they'll do it. That's all we do, really, in terms of reading and writing. It's making it fun. I mentioned earlier gamification. If we can find games or apps that allows them to earn points, that's how we do it. And making it fun is really the key. This next don't is also something I mentioned earlier, but indirectly. So what we do is one person, one language. We associate a specific person with a specific language. I want to emphasize here that we adhere to this strictly. So that's where it comes. We don't switch languages. No, I never switch languages on my kids. Never. I just don't naturally speak French to them or English to them or Japanese to them. It's always, always, always Mandarin. Now, when I say this, people ask me, well, they see you speak different languages to other people. And I go, yes, they know that I speak Japanese with my wife. They know that I speak French to my friends in the community. They know that I speak these languages. That's irrelevant. What is critical, what is key is that they develop a specific habit to speak Mandarin with me. And that's what matters. Once we do this consistently enough, especially in our cases, since birth, then they don't know otherwise, or they feel weird if they speak a different language with me. Now, that is what we're going for. I feel weird, they're speaking a different language than Mandarin with our kids. So if we're in the public, I'm speaking French with my friends, and they're included in the discussion, then yes, they will receive some dialogues in French, but they know that that's special. Or if I'm reading a book in English to them, then obviously I'm using English, but they know that that's special. If I go off and talk about something more naturally, then I automatically switch to Mandarin. I could talk about the book in Mandarin, but the contents of the book I will read in English. So this is really to say that establishing this one person and the one associated language is something that we adhere to very, very strictly. And it's quite important. And what we want to ensure here is that the kids never feel that they have a choice to speak a different language. I don't want them to naturally gravitate towards this new option where they can go, well, hey, I could speak French with my dad. It's just not happened for now. My oldest is 8 years old. It's never happened, and I don't expect it to happen for at least another 2 years. Fingers crossed. And 10 years old is really my base case objective. So I want our kids to live this life until they're at least 10 years old. So my stretch goal is 12 years old. So I'm hoping that they will do this until they're 12 years old, when they graduate elementary school. That's when I left Taiwan, and I spoke Mandarin until I was 12 or 13. And I didn't speak it for 17 years. And I was able to pick it right back up when I started speaking it again. So that's what I'm hoping for my kids. Base case, 10 years old, hopefully until 12. And then after that, it'll be their choice, really, after that, I think I'll relax a little bit more. Okay, so let's switch gears to now talk about confidence. The first do that we've done in our home is start early. How early? I mean, look at the picture. Ronnie, my first son, is in Yuko's stomach, and I was talking to that tummy in Mandarin. So it's really from day zero. It's been Mandarin all the way. I mean, we've planned this out before the kids were born, and it's been continuing until today. And one of the biggest reasons to do this is, as I mentioned earlier, not to give them a different choice. It's also to really develop this habit from the very, very beginning. The kids are born into this multilingualism, and they just don't know otherwise. So there's no questioning from our kids of whether they can or cannot speak this language, whether it's hard or easy, or it's just language. It's just ideas that just never come up. They don't know otherwise. So that's one critical point about starting early. The next is also about that window of time before kids develop pride, before they develop self-awareness, before they develop shame, or these different feelings, different things that cause mental blocks. Um, they're just they're just living, when they're very, very young. They do what what they think they're supposed to do. In this case, we drill it into their minds that they're supposed to speak Mandarin with daddy, supposed to speak Japanese with mommy. That's just how it is. And it's been working very well so far. And we just had our fourth child doing the same thing. Starting day one, it's just Mandarin with me, Japanese with mom. There's no alternative. Something that's kind of indirect that we do is we give our children lots of opportunities to do various different things. Let them develop different skills, whether it's sports, music, arts, anything they like, anything that they show interest in, we will go in and try to support them to the best of our abilities. Obviously, with whether it's equipment or instruments, but also spend a lots of time with them and going and helping them learn these different things. And inevitably, as their interest gets them started, they somewhere along the way, inevitably they will hit walls, they will hit obstacles, and we're there with them. We help them work through the obstacles. We help them progress. We help them get better at what they do. So what we're doing here is we're getting them to develop, we're getting them to experience a lot of these obstacles, and also giving them a taste of success once they overcome the obstacles, and letting them go through this positive cycle of wanting to do something, interested in something, and then doing it to a point where they hit a wall, overcome it, find out that's a great sensation, keep continuing. And with that, kids won't develop the, well, we're hoping that they won't develop this sense of questioning themselves of whether they can or cannot do something, or whether they have the talents to do it, or they're smart enough to do it, or none of that is important. The only question that I want them to be asking themselves is whether they want to do it. That's what I want the kids to be able to do in life. They want to do something, they can do it. And here, developing this naturally spills over to languages. You need a lot of confidence to speak different languages in front of different people. So by doing all these things, I'm thinking that this will spill over, this will cross-pollinate, and allow them to be able to feel strong and confident wherever they go, whatever they do, including speaking different languages. Okay, there are many other things to think about to boost children's confidence, but I think we're going to boil it down to taking up a tailored approach depending on the children's personality. So I'll show you a picture of all four of my kids. They're all very different. Well, the baby, I don't know yet, but at least the first three, they're very different. Each one has their personalities, their different characteristics, and we want to know them very well, know what they like, what they dislike, and find ways to adapt to that. So we spend a lot of time with them. We build a lot of trust with the kids so that they will open up to us, tell us everything they want, they'd like. And a lot of this is obviously psychology. I mean, I'm no psychologist. I don't know all the official terms, but it's basically knowing what they like and what are their habits. Whether they like a hands-on approach, they very dependent on us, or they like to do things on their own. They like a lot of freedom, or if this kid needs lots of encouragement, they need us to shower them with praise, or it's less relevant to another kid. So this tailored approach to these to the different kids is obviously very time consuming. So it demands a lot of sacrifices from us, the parents. But definitely, it's something that we do, and it allows us to get much better results. One recent example I can give you is, again, we come back to the italki lessons for our kids. Our first son here, you see in the middle, is Ronnie, and he likes a lot of attention. He's also much more confident than, for example, Nika, who's next to him. So when he's doing the italki lessons, he's confident. He talks a lot. He talks very loudly. He answers all the questions right away. He's got very good interaction going on with the teacher during the lessons, regardless of where he's taking the lessons, where he's alone, or he's in the kitchen or in the dining room with other people, without other people. He's just very natural. But we've noticed that Nika is different. Nika, when there's other people in the room, she gets a lot more self-conscious, and she's a lot more quiet. She doesn't answer the questions that the teacher is asking. So her level of confidence is not the same as Ronnie. So we've learned to put her in a quieter room by herself with the teacher, and we've seen over time that as she gets better, and this is not just languages, this is also other things that she does, whether it's skis or skating. At first she's a lot more shy, but once she gets a hang of it, same thing with this italki lesson. Once she gets a hang of it, just like any kid, she wants that attention. She loves to show to others. So her pace of development is different, but once she becomes confident, she loves to talk to us about it. She loves to show off, I guess, like any kid. So that's how we tailor the approach to the different kids based on their personalities. So let's go into some don'ts. I just have this one slide for the don'ts, actually, because I think it's one that's very critical in terms of the confidence building, or in this case, this something you do. It's a big confidence killer. So what we really are careful of with our kids is we don't want to be overcritical with them. We don't want to seek perfection. Especially we're doing 5 languages. We're definitely not seeking all 5 to be all at the same very, very high level. I know that they're gonna have differences between different languages as time goes on. Right now, Ronnie's 8. I would say Mandarin is probably one of his weaker ones. The other 4 are all pretty good at their age standardized level. But as the kids get older, as their school takes more and more space in their lives, I think French will overtake the other languages. Right now, Japanese and French are probably their top 2. Spanish is right up there also, I think. So anyways, we don't want to be too critical. It's this one's tough for me. I hold myself to a very high level, high standards in everything I do, and I really need to actively think about not, transferring that directly to our kids. I really want to make sure that I don't, for example, correct everything they say. Go in and correcting their grammar or their mistakes and all that. Sometimes what I do is indirectly I would paraphrase, I would repeat what they say, but with the correct wordings and whatnot. But I don't go out and say, you said this wrong, you should say it this way. That is a confidence killer. So we don't want to do that. And I take it further in that I also tell their teachers to not do this. Well, not specifically, not just for languages, but academics in general. If I want, I think in primary school, academics. I mean, in our in our humble opinion, academics, the grades, it's not that important for us. Um, so I try to ask the teachers, whether it's here in Quebec or in Japan or in Taiwan, whenever we have a chance to talk to teachers, I always tell them to, tell them that we're not so keen, or we're not so strict on grades and whatnot, but we want them to keep an eye out for communication with other kids. We want them to keep an eye out for whether they're integrating very well into the social circles, are they making friends, are they not being excluded, or even worse, are they not being bullied. It's never happened yet, knock on wood, but these are the things that we talk to the school teachers about. And thankfully, so far, the grades have not been suffering. They're not top of the class, but kind of above average. They're okay kids, I think. And something that I really love is when teachers tell us that they are integrating well. We get comments where they say they're no different than the Japanese kids their age. And something that I absolutely love is when teachers, they tell us that our kids adapt very well. This has come up many times. So we're very happy to see that, if we go to Japan, our kids go in and they just get into the routine very quickly, very normally, without any fuss. There's they don't refuse to go to school. They don't cry. And for them, it's just another place. It just happens to be in Japanese or in Mandarin. But they're still just going to school and playing with friends. And that normalcy, this is really something we've been striving for. Can't say it right. That's something we have been striving for, and we're very happy to see that's how it's been. That's how it's been turning out so far. My oldest is 8, my second one is 6, third one is 3. And I think if we have the first kid as the model case, the other ones should follow. That's what we're expecting, hopefully. All right, so those are the main points that I wanted to address. If I could conclude with this final slide, there's a few bullet points that I would like to touch upon. So again, motivation and confidence, I think these are managed by parents when we are talking about kids. And one big reason is that kids cannot rationalize. So they're not very good at telling themselves that, oh, this is good for my career or whatnot. Every once in a while, you will find a kid who loves languages, but I'm not betting on my kids being one of those. In fact, I've never seen any evidence suggesting that my kids neither hate nor love languages. It's just a part of their lives. So that's the first point. Second point, if you mismanage their motivation and confidence, this can have very tragic outcomes, ranging from slow progress in the target languages to worst cases, they'll refuse to speak those languages. This is a predicament that we really wanted to avoid at all costs for our kids. Again, knock on wood, like my oldest is 8. It's never happened. I don't expect it to happen in the next few years. Like I mentioned earlier, 10 years old is my base case objective. 12 is my stretch goal. I'm hoping that they will not have this before age 12. After that, I think the languages will be very well acquired. Like myself, I've not spoken Mandarin for 17 years and I was still able to come right back in as if nothing happened. That's what I'm hoping for my kids with this language program until they're 12. So far, no refusal. This is something we've been wanting to avoid because it is something that's very, very, very difficult to reverse. So it's just, I don't have the solution for how to reverse it. And I know that I've never seen any expert come up with a very convincing and effective way to reverse this refusal to speak. So I just don't want to find myself in that situation. Next point I want to talk about is motivate naturally through working on the context, the living context of your children. So be tough on the environment, as in, spend time and energy and money to build an environment where they will naturally use the languages. If it's hiring an au pair into your home, they will speak that language with that au pair. If they want to play with the au pair, go to a different country, live there for extended periods of time. The one thing you don't want to do is force them. Okay, so key point: naturally motivate, but don't force them to do what they don't want to do. It's never going to turn out well. These drills or grammar or cram schools, I avoid them. I just don't want to force them to do something. I just don't think it's going to work out. Next point, building confidence. We do it through experience, language-wise or otherwise. We want them to accumulate lots of different types of experience, learn new skills, go to new places, make new friends. And something I mentioned earlier, very important, let them go through this cycle of wanting to do something, failing safely. Okay, let them know that they can make mistakes, they can have failures, they can hit walls, overcome these different obstacles, have a good taste of success, and repeat with different things that they want to do in their life, and always have this confidence that they can do anything they want. The only question is whether they want to do it or not. So, and the final bullet point here is something that I hadn't mentioned it at all during this talk, is something that my mother had been telling me a lot, and that is to be your children's biggest fan. You want to be there with them, enjoy the journey with them every step of the way. So throughout language learning, throughout all these other different types of skills, there will inevitably be the highs and the lows. So at any given time, you want to be able to demonstrate to your kids that you are their most loyal fan and that you are willing to do anything, like anything, to support their cause and be there with them and love them under any conditions. So thank you for spending your precious time with me here. I think there's nothing that I mentioned throughout this talk that's anything close to rocket science. It's all very simple concepts. Although I think actively implementing these concepts is deceptively difficult. So I do recommend that you think through these things actively. There's a lot of sacrifices, there's a lot of efforts, there's a lot of resources that you need. So definitely take the time to plan it out. Well, I wish all parents good luck in raising multilingual children. If you need me for anything, I look forward to your questions throughout the conference or even after. You can find me at asktetsu.com or on all the social media platforms. Just look for @AskTetsu. So that's it. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye-bye.